there, welcome to Everyday Moodlings. I'm your host, Jeree Parks, and in this video we are going to do a big book of backgrounds background. So if you haven't checked them out already on my blog, I have a whole series of backgrounds that I added to this Delusions art journal. I use other art journals too, but this is kind of the one I started with, and it is just backgrounds. I typically don't art journal, not in this larger size anyway. And then I take these backgrounds and I cut them down into smaller pieces and use them for tag art or ATCs or embellishments. So they just stay housed in here, and I felt like it was time to do a Halloween one, so that's what we're going to do today. Kind of a get ready for Halloween background. But a couple of things I wanted to do here. One, our challenge this week is to use black. And black is actually one of my favorite colors to add into any project because I just think it's very grounding and it's just a really nice pop of contrast. I don't like to use a ton of black because it's so powerful and so heavy. It's got a lot, obviously it's the darkest of the colors, so it's going to have the most weight to it. So I'm careful in how I use it, but black always ends up somewhere on all of my projects. I don't ever leave it out. So, and it usually comes in the form of some type of stamping or, you know, working with shadows or adding in some edging along that line, or oh gosh, it seems like all of my tags or all of my TCs I've sketched around them with a black pen. So it just feels like my piece isn't finished until I have just a little bit of black on there. So the other thing that I wanted to share in this video is a little bit more about background stamps. Our challenge last week was background stamps, and I was so busy with the colored pencils classes that instead of sharing a new project, I just kind of looked through and came up with all the different ways that you could use background stamps, and I shared those with you last week. But then it occurred to me that I hadn't shown you my favorite background stamp or my favorite way to use background stamps, so I'm going to do that in this video. Whew, a lot to get to. So let's start first with kind of the beginnings of our background, and this is Delusions ink spray, and I use that on purpose this time around because it is highly water soluble, reacts to anything wet, which can be really annoying at times, but for this project I was looking for that. So I just went with 3 colors, a little bit of brown. I didn't use too much brown because it's really overwhelming. The fresh lime and pure sunshine, and I should say this is called ground coffee. So, and then I just kind of tilted it upward and sprayed it with a little water to get it to move around a little bit and create some interesting dynamic to my background. And the truth is, I could stop right here. This is a nice background for me to get started, but I would like to layer a few other things on there. So this right here is my all-time favorite background stamp. It is just a basic text stamp. I like that it's a clear stamp because it's really flexible, because that's how I like to use it. On a background like this, I don't even like putting it on a block. I'm like the flexibility. So I'm just going to put a little StazOn on here, and I am using StazOn on purpose because I'm going to put another wet medium on top, and I don't want it to react to that wet medium. So I just like rolling it on here. I like that look. It kind of fades in and fades out. It feels that like when I do it this way, it feels to me like it's just part of everything else that's in the background versus something that sticks on top. So basically I just ink it up a little bit and I don't worry about full coverage, and then I just kind of roll it on rather than pressing down really hard. It just gives interesting variation It's not a perfect stamp image, and I don't want it to be. Like right here, there's a big old gap missing out of it, and that's perfect. Could I do this with a bigger stamp, bigger background stamp? Sure. But it would be really, really hard to do it with a wood backed stamp. So I want it to be unmounted. The nice thing about a clear stamp is that it's more flexible than a wooden one, or a true rubber stamp. So I can really get that faded in and faded out look. Now I also wanted to use just a little bit of this brick. This is Prima. This is a great background stamp too. I wouldn't say by any means it's my favorite. I just thought it's a really fun Halloween look. So I'm going to go ahead and add some of that to my background as well. Okay, one of the things that you'll notice is that I often overlap or snuggle them up really close together, two stamped images, and that's kind of on purpose. I like to kind of bring things together rather than having it really random all over the page. That adds some, it grounds the images a little bit so they don't feel like they're floating on me. So, love that brickwork. There's just, that reminds me of Halloween. Yeah. Okay, so for our next step, we're going to add in some texture using a stencil, and I'm going to be using something called matte gel. Most gels have a pretty glossy finish to them, and I didn't want that for this project. The high gloss just didn't seem like what I was going for with Halloween. So I'm going to use a matte gel. Now this is transparent when it dries. So I wanted specifically to use it with the Delusions ink because I know the Delusions will be activated by the liquid in the matte gel, and so they'll kind of come together and it'll almost be a little bit like a stained glass effect. It's going to stain this medium for me, and that's what I want. Now, I'm not going to cover the whole thing. I'm just going to use little bits and pieces, and again, kind of layering it with my inked images, which is again why it's important to go ahead and make sure you're using a waterproof ink. Otherwise, you end up with one big old mess. I love using a gel medium with my stencils. I also hate it because then I have to clean my stencil up. One of the reasons I don't cover the whole thing is because I'm not using it as an entire background. I'm going to always cut it up into smaller pieces. We got quite a bit on there. Actually, I'm probably putting down more than I normally would. Okay, and you can already see it is starting to react a bit to that spray ink behind there. I'll give a nice finished project. Now, one of the last things I want to do on this particular background is to add in a little glitter to my art medium. It will become not really suspended in there, but it will adhere to it. I'm not a huge glitter fan, so for me a little goes a long way. But it's a really nice effect once this is clear, because it looks like the glitter is suspended in there. Now I could have mixed the glitter with the art medium before I put it through here, through the stencil, and then it really would be suspended in that gel medium. But that's not quite what I was going for. That would have been too even for me. I wanted some variation in how much of the glitter landed in certain places. I wanted more control, basically. So I think I got enough down there. Now I have to wait and let it dry completely. At the end of this video, you'll see a final picture of it. And later this week, I will show you what I did with this background to create a Halloween project. I'm sure by now I have glitter all over me. If you want to check out the rest of my Big Book of Background posts, if you're watching this on YouTube, there'll be a link to my blog. If you're on my blog, over on the right hand side, there's going to be a link to all of the Big Book of Backgrounds. So if you have any questions about anything I did here, please be sure to let me know. I'm always happy to help, and I hope you pull out some black and get busy creating something special. Until next time, I'm your host, Jury Parks with Everyday Moodling.